I'm the Well-Rounded Girl. Tonight is the 5th episode and the final one for this week. But be sure to come back on Monday as we start the new week. I will be doing a live stream every night. I know I have not been doing this at a normal time this whole week. It's just getting started on this. It's taken me a little time to figure out, but I am thinking about doing it at 10 o'clock every night. Please leave me a comment below if that is too late for some of you guys. I would like to know, so that I can get as many people to watch this as possible. So if 10 o'clock is too late for you, then let me know. I might think about doing it at like 9:30 or something. So anyways, let's go ahead and get to the devotional. As usual, I am reading from Horse Tales from Heaven by Rebecca Ondav. Last night I told you guys about who Rebecca Ondav is. She worked on a ranch. So all of these devotionals are pretty much about her experience and stuff working on a ranch. So tonight's devotional is called Sling Rope, and the verse is, "It is absolutely clear that God has called you to a free life. Just make sure that you don't use this freedom as an excuse to do whatever you want to do and destroy your freedom. Rather, use your freedom to serve one another in love. That's how freedom grows." Galatians 5:13. The pines gently swayed in the warm afternoon breeze. Minnesota, a black mule with a white nose, stood tied to the hitching rack next to the barn. The last couple months I'd been gentling mules and a horse that were pastured by Snuffy's place. He was the saddle maker who'd hired me as a cook and told me about the ranching job. With a blue plastic curry comb, I brushed clumps of dirt off Minnesota's back and then shook the brush at him. "I'll bet you don't realize it yet, but you're getting saddled again today." I lowered the brush. "Only I wish I knew how to slap a load on the saddle. Snuffy was supposed to be here." I swept the curry comb across his sides in tight circles. Minnesota leaned into the brush as he basked in the attention. Normally, brushing the mules was as relaxing for me as it was for them, but today I was troubled. I kept rewinding the conversation I'd had with Gail last night. I'd met Gail shortly after I moved to Missoula. I hadn't made any friends yet, so it was fun to hang out in town together. She seemed like a go-getter because she always talked about her future. Then last night she phoned and invited me over to her mom's to spend the evening doing star charts. I hadn't heard of them, so I asked what they were. She excitedly replied, "Mom and I can help you map out your future. Using charts that show the movement of the stars, we can foretell what's going to happen, and it really works, too." I wound the phone cord around my little finger. "So is this like fortune telling?" "No, this is more exact because we use star charts." "I'll pass." Gail's voice became forceful and defensive. "There isn't anything wrong with it. It's all scientific." I squirmed in the wooden captain's chair. Gail's voice grew hard. "What's wrong with just seeing what the charts say? Are you a prude or something like that?" I chewed on my lip. "No thanks," I replied. Even as I hung up the phone, her words were stabbing me. Was I a prude? Did my beliefs bind me? I brushed one last clump of dirt off Minnesota's neck. I walked into the barn and pulled a pack saddle and saddle pad off a rack. Stepping next to the mule, I flipped the saddle pad on his back. As I swung the saddle in place, Snuffy roared down in the driveway in his green pickup truck. He pulled up next to the hitching rack. Unfolding his tall, wiry frame from the truck, he slipped on his brown cowboy hat, got hung up at the shop got hung up at the shop, but it looks like I made it in time. Let's load the mule, he said. I smiled, very relieved. That'd be great. I buckled the saddle straps and tightened the cinch while Snuffy man-tied. Sorry, I'm butchering it. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm doing awful tonight. I buckled the saddle straps and tightened the cinch while Snuffy man-tied a couple bales of hay, wrapping and tying them in 2 heavy-duty canvas tarps. He lugged them over to Minnesota and placed them on the ground, one on each side of the mule. He reached up on the saddle and tugged on a bundle of rope that was neatly looped through one of the saddle's D-rings. This is called a sling rope, he instructed. I know that, I giggled, but I don't have a clue how to use it. Snuffy loosened the rope. See how this end is tied to the front D-ring? Then we slide the rope through the back D-ring and let the loose end hang down, he said, demonstrating. Now I'm pulling the middle of the rope down to form a loop, supported by the front and back D-rings. The loop was so big that it hung down to Minnesota's knees. Snuffy stroked his salt and pepper colored beard and looked at me. Stand back while I load the hay. There's no telling what this mule's gonna think of these packs and their weight. I stepped back 10 feet. The cowboy rubbed Minnesota's shoulder. Now you just mind your business, Snuffy said soothingly. He turned and placed his feet next to the first pack. He lifted the closest end of the 80-pound canvas-wrapped hay bale to his knees and reached out and grabbed the other end. In one swift motion, he hefted the pack up so it rested on his knees, swiveled, and heaved it up against the pack saddle, leaning his chest against the bottom to support it. Minnesota nonchalantly looked back at the pack. Snuffy pulled the sling rope that hung loose from the back D-ring and adjusted the loop so it tightened across the top third of the load. Across the middle of the load, he threaded the end of the rope through the now snug loop, forming a smaller loop. Now he tugged harder on the rope next to the back D-ring. Watch how the sling rope sucks the pack into the D-rings. Wiggling the pack with his shoulder while pushing it hard against the saddle, he pulled until the loop around the load was tight. I made the smaller loop earlier because the rope is so tight. Now I'd never be able to thread. I made the smaller loop earlier because the rope is so tight now I'd never be able to thread the rope through to tie off. He grabbed the rope's loose end and pulled it taut across the bottom of the pack and up to the lower loop, where he tied it off with a quick knot. He moved to the other side of Minnesota and did the same thing with the second sling rope and pack. He stood back and scratched the critter's neck. You're a good mule. You act like you've been loaded every day of your life. Minnesota closed his eyes and leaned into Snuffy's rubbing. The cowboy placed his hand on the top of the pack. This is the really cool thing about a sling rope. Sharply he pulled down, making the packs rock from side to side. The packs rock like this when the mule walks. If you place the sling rope around the pack at just the right spot, it holds the packs in balance. Once again he rocked the packs. Oftentimes the bottom of the pack bangs against a rock, or the side of a cliff, or even a tree. He pushed the bottom of the pack toward Minnesota's rear, tipping it off kilter. As the saddle rocked, the sling rope allowed the pack to straighten itself. Did you see how the sling rope didn't bind the load? Instead, it offered support by giving the load freedom to adjust back to the balanced position. Once again, he pushed the bottom of the pack off kilter. While I watched it rock, his words seeped into me. Bind. The sling rope doesn't bind. Instead, it supports. That's what my beliefs were doing. They weren't binding me. They were supporting me by keeping me free from sin and in balance with God. Sin is bondage. Gail has it twisted and backward. As the pack righted itself and quit rocking, Relief flooded through me. Maybe I am a prude for God, but I want to be, and I'm not going to feel bad or apologize. Thank you, Lord, for giving me your word to support me and keep me free from sin. Help me be courageous and stand strong in my relationship with you. Amen. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed that devotional. As usual, please leave a comment of your take on the devotional. I would love to hear from you guys. My take on it is this, and I've been through this before, where I've had people ask me to do something or say something to me that I don't agree with, and I always try to be gentle in my responses, because you never know when you'll be able to help somebody. But it's true. People that aren't believers don't really understand what believing is like to Christians. They think that if you follow God, then you're in bondage. You can't do all the things that you want to do. But that's backwards, because if you believe in God, you won't want to do those things anymore, because you'll know that it's wrong. And so this, I think, is a really good lesson for a lot of teenagers, because they feel peer pressure to do what all the other kids at school are doing, what all their friends are doing. But you know what? Do what you know is right. And even if people make fun of you for it or call you names, do what you know is right, because God knows what you're doing. And make God proud of you by saying, you know what, no, that's okay. And you can be nice about it. You can be very gentle and nice and just say, no, thanks, that's okay. You know, if everybody's gonna go out and drink, just, say, no, that's wrong. I'm not gonna do it. And sometimes you just have to do what you have to do, because you don't want to sin. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Please give this video a thumbs up, because we made it through the first week of this series. Also, subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss an episode. And let me know what you guys think at the time, if 10 o'clock will work for you guys, okay? Because I really don't want you to be in bed already when I do this, and then you guys can't watch it. Of course, you can always watch them after the live stream. These videos do go onto my channel, so you can just go to my channel and find them there if you miss any of them. So I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I will see you Monday night. Night, night, guys.